What's up? It's me, Haley Jones with eXp Realty. I am here with,
Shay Martin with Mortgage Investors Group.
and this is a Finance Friday. Today we are talking about gift funds, which very closely relates to our topic last week, which was funds for closing. And so gift funds is kind of could be a possible piece of that depending on where your funds are coming from. So we wanted to discuss this. So when we say gift funds, Shay, what exactly are we saying?
Right. So like I said, we mentioned this a little bit last week. We wanted to do a whole episode because gift funds in and of itself is I could talk 10 minutes about gift funds. So gift funds mean that if you don't have that money personally in your account for closing costs, down payment, things like that, different loan programs or loan types will allow you to get a gift for your funds for closing. So the loans that will allow you, typically it has to be your principal residence. So if you're buying an investment property, you are not allowed to get a gift. So things like that, but primary residence, principal residence, if you do intend to occupy the property, pretty much every loan program will allow you to get a gift for your funds for closing. Each loan program is a little bit different about who you can get a gift from, but primarily I tell people from a family member. That is allowed on all loan programs. It can be from a family member. Some get a little bit particular when you get outside family about who is allowed, things like that. So let's just say safely, until you talk to a lender and nail down your loan program, you can get a gift from a family member for funds for closing.
Got it.
If it's your
So
principal residence.
yeah, and principal residence, that means where you're going to live, like
Exactly. You're right. Your
place you're gonna
primary, I'm going to occupy the house.
right.
Because if it's second home, it's a little bit different because the percentage of, the borrower has to contribute a portion of their own money before they can get a gift. Investment, no gift whatsoever is allowed.
Got it. No investment, no gifts at all. Okay, so you said, the safe bet is from a family member. So I've run into this before with a past client who the documentation, it wasn't from a family member, it was from like a friend or whatever. And this program was going to allow it, but there was like some funky documentation that was needed. So when it comes to like documenting, I guess even for a family member, how do you show, or what's needed to show that this person is a family member or whatever?
Yeah, and that's where there's a little bit of a gray area because what we on the front end for gift funds, and again, I always say have this conversation with your lender because I want to talk you through the best way to receive a gift or for the gift donor to give a gift. Because personally, the preferred method I think that is easier on everyone is for the gift to be given at closing directly to the title company. Obviously, sometimes you'll already have a deposit in your account and we have to source it a little bit differently. But on the front end, all we typically have to have is what's called a gift letter. This gift letter states who the gift donor is, what the relationship is to the buyer, the borrower, the amount of the gift, and that there is no expected repayment. So that's the big thing on getting a gift for closing. The donor can't say, well, I'll give you this money, but I expect you to pay me $50 a month until it's paid off, because then we have to count a debt against you. So if it has to be a true, what's called bona fide gift, as in no expected repayment. I'm giving you this money. I don't expect anything in return. And so on that gift letter, they state the relationship. Again, when we get into different loan programs and things like that, we can go outside a family member to close friend, cousin, things like that. But they want to make sure that this is not funny money. So they're going to try to document that relationship. So if you get outside a family member with a stated familiar relationship, close friend, they're going to want to say, okay, are you guys living together currently? Is this person going to be living in the house with you? Do they have a vested interest in this? Can we document that you live together? And yes, then that person can give you funds for closing because we can show, okay, you both get mail at the same place. You do have a relationship. This just isn't Jim Bob off the street who's giving me $10,000 who could have possibly gotten that money from the seller or things like that. So that's why they are very particular about that relationship and documenting, just to make sure this is, legitimate, that someone has a vested interest in giving you this money.
So most often these gift funds, do you see this being applied as down payment? Do you see this being applied as closing costs? Like, are there rules in terms of what it can be applied to?
No. So if I give you your money for closing and say you need $10,000, if you've got five and your mom's willing to give you 5,000, you can combine that money. If you've got zero and your mom's willing to give you 10, you can, your mom can give you that full 10. So it can go towards down payment and or closing costs. Any funds for closing, you can get a gift for.
Now, when it comes to knowing you're going to get a gift, is it ideal to know that when you apply and get pre-approved? Or is it okay that this comes up 2 weeks ahead of time before closing and now you need a gift?
Yeah, so typically it's going to be part of the loan application, part of the pre-approval process. We're going to say, okay, to look in this price range or at this loan program, this is what you need. You can get a gift. Do you have a family member or someone who's willing to help you with that? I'm going to ask those questions on the front end. If someone says, look, down payment is not possible for me, then we would say, okay, is there somebody willing to help you out? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the relationship. And then, if I'm the buyer, I'm going to go out and start asking mom, dad, in-laws, is someone willing to help us? So yes, those conversations should be had on the front end. It's part of, like we talked about last week, with funds for closing, know what you need out of pocket. If you can swing it, if you can't, there's last minute things that come up all the time and we can make it work. But, for the most part, you're going to know on the front end, here's my bottom line. This is what I've got. I got to find the difference with someone willing to help me on those gift funds. Because when we go to underwriting, we have to tell the underwriter where your money's coming from. So if you need 10,000 and you only have 5,000 in your account and we send your loan to underwriting, the underwriter's going to say, hold up, I'm missing $5,000. So that's where we have to have that gift letter in the file that shows the underwriter. It's a placeholder basically for where the remaining portion of your funds is coming from. I say that on the front end, we typically just have the gift letter. This is just when we're talking about gift funds not deposited in a borrower's account. Obviously, like I mentioned, sometimes you got a gift a month or two ago that we see in your account, we can't necessarily avoid it. Then we would get that gift letter and show that money is in your account did come from a gift. But if on the front end, you have those conversations on the front end that you're going to be getting a gift, let your lender talk you through the best way to transact those gift funds. Because like I said earlier, I think the best way on everybody is just for the donor to give the gift on your behalf at closing. Every loan program is different as far as the documentation we have to have. We always are going to have that gift letter. Some loans do require a bank statement from the donor showing that the money is the donor's available to give. So again, we're going to have those conversations on the front end to say, is mom comfortable providing a bank statement? Because she's going to have to provide a bank statement in order to give you that money. If she won't provide the bank statement, we have to go a different route. So different loan programs are different, but if that conventional doesn't necessarily require that bank statement, so if they give the gift at closing, all we have to have is a copy of the check that the donor provided at closing showing that they did have the money to give to you. Obviously, they provided the check. So we have to show that gift that was given at closing actually did come from the person who said they were going to give the gift, the account they said it was going to come from. So gift funds can be a little invasive for the donor. So that's why we always want to have that conversation on the front end, because your gift donor, the person helping you out, isn't necessarily in the process of showing all documentation and things like that. So they're going to say, hold up, why do you need this information from me? So we always want to make sure everybody's comfortable. And like I said, talk to your lender, talk to me on the front end, and I'll talk you through the best way to do it, just so everybody is prepared and ready, so they know what has to be provided in order for us to document those gift funds.
Right. So is there a max gift that you can receive, or does it matter?
So technically, for mortgage purposes, it does not matter. I get asked this question a lot as far as what's the IRS tax liability, things like that. I'm not a certified accountant. I can't speak to that. So if you have questions about that or concerns about that, talk to your accountant. As far as mortgage purposes, you can get a gift there's not a limit. Again, if it's your primary residence, things like that. But if you're, there might be other stipulations that require you to have some money yourself. But typically there is not a restriction on how much you can give as a gift.
Cool. So the main thing is, depending on the program, but primarily family members are a safe way to go. It may be somewhat invasive depending on what type of loan program for the gift giver, and you want the documentation. And ideally, it's basically the money is never transferred to the buyer.
Right.
Ideally, it happens at the closing table to the closing title company.
Right. And some, parents will say, well, it's just easier for me to write you a check than have to go get a cashier's check. If that happens and you go ahead and put the money in your account, we then have to update your bank statements to show you've received that money, show that the donor provided that money. So it just adds more documentation needed for underwriting purposes and things like that. That's why I just say it's easier to do it at closing, but definitely we'll meet you where everybody's comfortable. So just have those conversations with your lender and say, if I do this, what's going to be required? Perfect. Before you ever make any deposits, transfer any money, just always ask the questions.
Awesome. Cool. I think that's everything for gift funds. Did we miss anything?
I don't think so. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but the best, like I said, the biggest thing and the reason I want to talk about gift funds is talk about with your lender before you ever move any money, do anything to make sure it's okay. Because if you've already put something in your account and we run into it and then we have to start getting documentation, then that's when people say, hold up, I don't want to provide anything, and then we could have a problem. So as long as you have the conversations on the front end, where your money is coming from, if it is from a gift, let's talk through it. Just to make sure everybody's on the same page and everybody's comfortable. We don't have a problem or a hiccup and you're already under contract.
No problems, no hiccups. We want that clear to close. That's what we're going for.
Exactly.
All right. Okay. That's all I think for this week's Finance Friday. Again, I'm Haley Jones with eXp Realty.
And I'm Shay Martin with Mortgage Investors Group.
And we will see you next Friday.